Tech and SaaS Market Pulse Podcast, August 8th, 2026. Disclaimer: news only. Not legal, financial, medical, or professional advice. Opinions and stories are informational and anecdotal only. Episode title: Under 100 Characters. Tech and SaaS Market Pulse, August 8th, 2026. AI, FinTech, Cybersecurity, and DeFi. 1. Finance/FinTech. Pompey's IPO ambitions signal the next FinTech expansion wave. Is emerging market FinTech about to mint the next billion-dollar giant? One of the most closely watched developments in financial technology this week is Pompey's reported pursuit of approximately $200 million in new funding ahead of a potential Hong Kong public listing. The story matters far beyond a single company because it highlights a larger transition occurring throughout digital finance. Investors are increasingly searching for profitable, large-scale payment networks operating outside the saturated North American and Western European markets. Pompey's growth narrative reflects the rising demand for mobile-first banking, digital wallets, and embedded financial services that serve populations historically underserved by traditional financial institutions. In the SaaS ecosystem, payment platforms have evolved into software platforms, creating recurring revenue streams from lending, merchant services, identity verification, and financial analytics rather than simply processing transactions. This trend continues to attract institutional capital seeking exposure to digital financial infrastructure instead of consumer-facing applications alone. For listeners focused on long-term technology investment themes, Pompey represents another indicator that the next decade of fintech growth may increasingly come from global South markets where software, payments, and economic inclusion are converging at unprecedented scale. The papers. +1. 2.
Finance DeFi.
Stablecoins continue entering mainstream commerce through enterprise adoption. The quiet DeFi revolution is no longer happening on the margins. A notable story emerging from the digital asset sector is the growing enterprise adoption of stablecoin-based payment mechanisms, including reports of European business platforms integrating stablecoin settlement capabilities through major payment infrastructure providers. While cryptocurrency headlines often focus on speculation, the more significant development may be the gradual transformation of stablecoins into operational financial rails. Businesses are increasingly interested in programmable payments, near-instant settlement, cross-border efficiency, and reduced transaction friction. For SaaS providers, this trend opens opportunities to embed treasury management, invoice automation, and cross-border transaction capabilities directly into software products. The evolution resembles the early cloud computing era, when infrastructure quietly matured before becoming mission-critical across industries. Regulatory scrutiny remains substantial, but institutional participation continues to expand because stablecoins address real operational inefficiencies rather than purely speculative use cases. Looking toward the future, one can imagine a world in which digital commerce platforms spanning Earth and eventually off-world economic zones rely on programmable digital settlement layers operating continuously across jurisdictions and time zones. The papers. +1. 3. Legal tech/compliance. The EU AI Act enters a new phase for financial technology firms. Compliance may become the most valuable AI product of the decade. The implementation of new transparency requirements under the European Union's AI regulatory framework has become one of the most consequential developments for legal tech and compliance-focused SaaS companies. Organizations deploying AI systems now face increasing expectations regarding disclosure, transparency, documentation, and governance procedures. For fintech firms using AI-driven customer support, fraud detection, lending analytics, risk modeling, or investment guidance systems, compliance is becoming an operational function rather than a legal afterthought. This shift is creating demand for a new generation of regulatory technology platforms capable of monitoring AI decisions, documenting model behavior, and producing audit-ready evidence. The most successful SaaS companies in this category may ultimately be those that transform regulatory burdens into streamlined workflows. Investors are paying close attention because regulation frequently creates entirely new software categories, especially when compliance becomes mandatory and recurring. Rather than viewing AI regulation solely as a constraint, many industry participants see a significant business opportunity in building trusted systems that increase accountability, trust, and transparency throughout the digital economy. The Tech Advocate. 4. E-commerce/retail tech. AI-powered payments and embedded commerce accelerate retail transformation. Every checkout may soon become an intelligent financial assistant. Retail technology continues evolving as payment providers increasingly integrate artificial intelligence into customer-facing commerce experiences. One example is the emergence of conversational payment systems that allow consumers to complete transactions through AI-powered voice interactions. Although these technologies are still developing, they point toward a broader shift in commerce architecture where payment flows become more intelligent, personalized, and frictionless. Retail SaaS vendors increasingly compete not only on storefront capabilities, but also on the sophistication of embedded financial services and customer engagement tools. The convergence of AI, payments, customer analytics, identity verification, and logistics data is producing highly interconnected commerce ecosystems. For businesses, the promise is improved conversion rates, lower cart abandonment, and more efficient customer service operations. For consumers, the experience may feel less like navigating separate applications and more like interacting with a unified digital concierge. As these systems mature, software platforms could become the central operating layer connecting merchants, customers, supply chains, and financial services into a continuously learning commercial environment. The Papers. 5. Cybersecurity/risk management. Cybersecurity moves to the center of enterprise valuation, why investors are treating security as revenue infrastructure. Cybersecurity remained one of the dominant themes across technology markets this week as enterprises confronted continued threats ranging from data breaches and infrastructure attacks to emerging AI-related security concerns. Reports involving major breaches, government investigations, and growing concern about AI-enabled attack methodologies reinforce a trend that executives have increasingly recognized. Cybersecurity is no longer merely an IT expense. Instead, it has become a strategic business capability intertwined with customer trust, operational continuity, regulatory compliance, and enterprise valuation. Security-focused SaaS companies benefit from this environment because organizations increasingly require continuous monitoring, threat detection, identity governance, cloud security, and automated response capabilities. At the same time, investors are rewarding platforms that can demonstrate measurable risk reduction and operational resilience. The long-term implication is that security may become as foundational to digital infrastructure as cloud computing itself. In a future increasingly reliant on autonomous systems, interconnected supply chains, and potentially even extraterrestrial communications networks, resilient cybersecurity architectures may become one of humanity's most important technological achievements. Cybersecurity Review. +1. Podcast video description. Welcome to today's Tech and SaaS Market Pulse for August 8, 2026. In this episode, we explore the biggest developments across FinTech, DeFi, legal tech, e-commerce technology, cybersecurity, and SaaS infrastructure. From Pompei's reported IPO ambitions and expanding stablecoin adoption to the EU AI Act, AI-powered commerce systems, and the growing importance of cybersecurity in enterprise valuation, we break down the trends shaping tomorrow's digital economy. Expect a forward-looking analysis with a pragmatic technology lens, investor insights, and a human-centered perspective on innovation. Disclaimer: this content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered legal, financial, medical, investment, or professional advice. YouTube tags. Tech News 2026, SaaS News, FinTech News, FinTech Stock.